Hello everyone, my name is Manues. Welcome back to another Eternal News video. We just got a new patch with a couple of changes. First of all, they changed 4 cards. First being Water of Life. It now costs 1 power rather than 2. Makes it slightly better, but still pretty much irrelevant. At least now it's a bit more playable as like a sideboard option against like burn or something, but still probably won't be played. The next card they changed is Sandstorm Warrior. Sand Warrior, sorry. They changed it from a 3/2 to a 3/3, which is not particularly relevant currently because the card is not seeing play anyway, but the card has some potential, as I already explained in my review back then, and is kind of waiting to be broken eventually, so we'll just have to wait and see what's in store for the card with more cards being released. But right now the card is still gonna be benched even at 3/3. The other card that changed is probably the most relevant. That is Shimmer Pack. Shimmer Pack went up from 7 to 8. I mean, the change is not that big, simply because Shimmer Pack is not always looking to curve into turn 7 Shimmer Pack, and often only runs 2, so it won't even have it on 7 power all the time. And so the difference is not that huge, but it reduces the perfect draws, the max power of Shimmer Pack quite a bit, because before you could go 6 power Scouting Party into 7 power Shimmer Pack, turn all of them into 4/4s, giving the opponent as little time as possible to deal with them beforehand. Now the opponent gets like 1 more turn guaranteed to try and get rid of the Yetis and the board in general before Shimmer Pack might come down to kill you. Not exactly sure why they made that change, given that I think Shimmer Pack is actually pretty poorly positioned right now on ladder. Might be different in tournament. Can't judge that, given that I haven't played any tournaments yet. But I guess it definitely is better there because there's a lot more mid-range and control, where Shimmer Pack is a lot better against. On ladder it struggles a lot with the aggro decks, especially Chido and Recano. So yeah, that is definitely a relevant change, even though a bit surprising one to me, given that Shimmer Pack is not even dominating tournaments, let alone ladder right now. But they have not given a reason, as far as I know, why they did change it. And the other cards, the other card that has been changed is, one second, another time card. They really had it out for time this time, for whatever reason, given that time is not even that dominant right now as a faction. It's Excavate. Now Excavate itself cannot leave the void. It's basically like getting exiled in MTG. It basically stays in the void forever, cannot be returned or reused in any way, which is a common clause added to these kind of recursion effects, simply to avoid some crazy loops and stuff. So no more Excavate on Excavate and giving Excavate ego and going crazy with like Excavate loops and stuff. Not that that has been a dominating or even viable strategy right now, but I guess that's just like a general thing that they don't want people to be able to do, especially down the line when there's more cards coming out and the risk of powerful combos becomes bigger. So I guess that's just kind of a preemptive measure for future cards to be released, I guess, and securing or opening up design space for them. Nothing that particularly impacts the game as it stands right now. Alright, next we have the 5 new cards. So first off we have Fevered Scout. Fire still kind of lacks a go-to 3-drop. Like, the kind of best fire 3-drop right now still is Assembly Line, which is very specific in terms of what it does, so it is not like a good generic fire 3-drop unless you are like looking to go wide and have a way to abuse the tokens. But yeah, Fevered Scout kind of suffers from similar problems as the existing fire 3-drops, simply because it basically dies to anything. Like, it's a 3-drop that if you curve into it still will die with the rest of your early drops to Lightning Storm. It is a 3-drop that dies to Torch without having any impact on the game, which is always a bit so-so because of the explained tempo swing from my last tempo video. Like, your 3-drop should preferably not die to Torch, or if it dies to Torch, it should have some other effect, like Amber Acolyte giving you a power, giving you a sigil, or Valkyrie Enforcer silencing a unit and stuff like that, so that you at least get some kind of value and impact on the game from the card before it dies, to like dampen the tempo blow. I mean, the card has some potential, since getting +2/+2 from spells for that turn can make him quickly attack for 4 or 6 in the right deck, but also there's not really a deck right now that would want him or could support him well. And yeah, the problem is 2 health 3-drops suffer from both dying to Lightning Storm together with your early drops, and the fact that it's a 2/2 on the opposing turn after you play it also means that you basically play nothing on 3 in terms of defense, because most of what the opponent has will be able to freely attack into the Fevered Scout, unlike, say, a 3/3 or a 4/4 or a 3/4, or basically anything with like more health that you could play on 3 that at least discourages the opponent from attacking for 1 turn before it starts attacking itself. This basically has no defensive impact for the turn you play it, which is another minus basically. Alright, next we have Find the Way. We basically got a nerfed version of the old secret pages back. It basically does the exact same thing as the old secret pages, meaning it is a 2-power Sigil Searcher with Echo, so it still gets you 2 power for 1 card, even though for the investment of spending 4 power. But unlike the old secret pages, this time the sigils that you search would find the way enter the play depleted when you play them. So it comes at a considerable cost. Like, you get the color fixing and the card advantage, but at a cost of basically tempo curve disadvantage, which has to be seen how huge that impact is, simply because the card already is basically tempo disadvantage by spending up to 4 power on an effect that has no impact on the board, on the game state. And yeah, the fact that the sigils now also enter the game depleted makes this even more significant and risky, so it has to be seen how playable this nerfed version of the old secret pages is, but it might make some new or old strategies possible again that have died out with the loss of the old secret pages in a more balanced way, and also opens up more multi-faction deck options with like a bigger opportunity cost this time, due to the fixing being depleted. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting tool to have, and we will have to see how many of the old secret pages base decks this could revive basically, and how good they're gonna be. Next we have Throne Warden. This one is actually pretty sweet, I think. First of all, Justice so far basically has no really playable 5-drop. Sure, there's what's the name? There's Silverwing Commander, but the card is like a bit below the curve for like an aggressive deck, and not very interesting for a more defensive deck. While Throne Warden actually seems great for a more defensive deck. First of all, it definitely is a pretty sweet sideboard card for slower mid-range and control decks against more aggressive decks and against burn, since gaining 4 is a pretty decent amount, and the game currently is kind of lacking good life gain options to like main deck or sideboard, because most of them are like pretty bad and card disadvantage and stuff. And with Throne Warden we basically get a hard to remove 4/4 blocker that also gains us 4 life. Sure, as a Magic player we kind of are used to this type of effect coming 1 power cheaper at like 4, a 4/4/4 that gains 4 is very archetypical in Magic for this type of effect, but the fact that they added Aegis to it made it cost 5. It is questionable whether the Aegis is worth the extra cost, because you usually care about the impact as early as possible, but the Aegis also makes it a bit more universal, like a bit better main deck for example, and also more reliable on defense, because it's very unlikely that aggressive decks will be capable to pop the Aegis and kill the guy at the same time if you done other stuff before casting this guy. So yeah, I mean, Throne Warden definitely has potential and could be an interesting card for decks like Armory, even main deck, since you can either enhance that weapon that you played beforehand and make it better, or set up some armor for like your turn 6 Daisho or Maul, which is great. Having like a 6/7 Maul for example is incredible. Same for like a 4/8 Starsteel Daisho. So this is pretty nice, and the fact that it's a 4/4 Aegis also means that he can do a pretty good job of protecting the 4 armor that he gains you going into turn 6, so you actually get to use it with your weapon. And yeah, like I said, Justice also definitely had a hole in the curve so far in like the 5 slot, like various Justice decks now have an option to go to like a more defensive option in Throne Warden. The card is one of the most interesting of the 5 in my opinion, just because of adding something to the game that is kind of missing right now, filling a hole in the curve and providing a nice sideboard option for Justice decks for tournament play as well. Alright, next we have the new primal card, Borderlands Way Keeper. Another card that is not too exciting, but another kind of like role player curve filler, because right now, as you can see, Primal has a significant lack of relevant 2-drops, since the only real 2-drop basically is Eastwind Herald, and like these guys, which are mostly not very constructed playable, outside of Whispering Wind and like more combo-ish decks as a tutor option. Now Borderlands Way Keeper actually provides like a pretty solid defensive 2-drop. It's probably not main deckable for most decks, but it definitely provides like a solid sideboard option as like an early blocker. Like imagine Felon Scar or Felon Control decks curving this guy into Bloodcaster. Sounds pretty annoying to say a Jido opponent, for example. And they basically, due to Borderlands Way Keeper having Aegis, need to spend their Rapid Shot on this, so they won't have Rapid Shot for the Bloodcaster anymore, shutting them down and stuff. So yeah, this is like, if your sideboard is looking for more early blockers, early defense against aggressive decks like Jido, this might be your guy. Other than that, the card is not that relevant right now, in my opinion. Next we have the new Shadow card, Xenon Cultist. Kind of another curve filler once again, since Shadow also basically suffers from a lack of constructed playable 3-drops. Like we have Borderlands Guide, which is kind of a situational and specific card that can only go in certain decks. Then we have like Direwood Beast. One second. Direwood Beast, which is also not that great and constructed. And now we have Xenon Cultist. Like the fact that it is a 2/4 is pretty nice because it blocks fairly well the turn you play it, and also survives stuff like Lightning Storm and Torch. It actually has some interesting potential as Lightning Storm protection, because if you curve a couple of units into this guy, your opponent basically cannot Lightning Storm. Then again, the opponent basically has to top deck Lightning Storm, or decided to like not Lightning Storm on turn 2 against your like 2 units or whatever. But it is potentially interesting because you can basically play this and play a couple guys that die to Lightning Storm, and then if they Lightning Storm, they still get hit for like a ton. The guy dies to Annihilate, which is not irrelevant, because this makes him definitely more vulnerable, and once he's grown he also dies to Vanquish. So there's a lot of like cheaper removal spells that cover him. Suffocate kills him before he grows. So there's, as with a lot of 5-drops, a lot of 3-drops, quite some tempo gain potential for opponents, because there's various cheaper ways to kill it. But in case of Vanquish, that's like the least relevant, simply because they usually take a bunch of damage before they Vanquish it, and that should set them further back, so that's okay. But yeah, the fact that it dies to both Annihilate and Suffocate can be awkward, but it's pretty resilient and has some interesting applications. There might be like an interesting deck with this guy and Scrap Tank, for example. It might be an interesting alternative 3-drop option in Xenon Killers, for example. We'll have to see. The card definitely is not terrible and has its potential and applications. Like 2/4 for 3 is already fine stats, and basically once one of your guys dies, it's a 4/6 for 3, which is great. So yeah, that covers the 5 new cards. Not as impressive or high impact as we maybe would have wanted or hoped, but all of the cards seem to have some potential and some applications, and are not necessarily underpowered, but they have their weaknesses, and it will have to be seen if and how much they find their way into decks. Some of them might only show up in sideboards in tournament play, like I said, and some others might have to wait a while till they can unfold their potential with more cards being released and stuff like that. But yeah, some other changes that we got from the patch basically were a couple nice UI upgrades. Now we have a clock showing all the time. We have functions like you can toggle between the percentage of how complete your collection is in terms of one of each, playset of each, and premium playset of each, basically. A couple of nice filter options, basically. You can now right click the tile of a card in the deck building screen to like jump to the card, which is something that I have been waiting for a while and looking for, and that is definitely nice. And yeah, a couple of nice visual effects added and stuff, like Sandstorm Titan got a visual effect indicating that it does something and stuff like that. But yeah, all in all, that covers all the relevant changes basically, and also the new cards that we got. So enjoy the new cards, try them out. I hope my review gave you some ideas and suggestions on what you could do with them, and if you have some interesting ideas for the new cards that I didn't think of, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, see you next time, I'm out.